Right now, there are 9 tech companies in the world valued at over $1 trillion, and 8 of them are American. What's even more remarkable? Every single one was born within the last 50 years. But it's not just tech. If you look at the world's top 10 or even the top 20 biggest companies by market value of any industry, you'll find they're almost entirely American, with just one exception each from Taiwan, China, and Saudi Arabia. Here's where Europe stands in the global corporate race. Its top tech players, Dutch semiconductor leader ASML, and German software giant SAP, rank 32nd and 25th worldwide, yet neither even cracks $400 billion in value. Beyond tech, France's luxury titans, LVMH and Hermes, both hold spots in the top 40, alongside Denmark's pharmaceutical powerhouse, Novo Nordisk, and Swiss Nestlé. These are impressive giants by European standards, but their combined worth is less than half of Apple's towering market cap, let alone competing with America's multi-trillion-dollar juggernauts. What happened? How did Europe fall so far behind in the past 50 years that while the US produced $8 trillion companies, the EU and other non-EU European countries couldn't create even one? Not even a single company worth half that amount. The answer seems clear. Europe has lagged significantly behind the US and China in areas like technology, computer science, and artificial intelligence. And these are the very fields that have driven global growth over the past few decades. All of the trillion-dollar companies we mentioned earlier, Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Tesla, Broadcom, and Meta, are tech companies. And you already know these names. So why did Europe miss out? European companies, especially in tech, have consistently failed to turn good ideas and research into large-scale commercial success. Europe certainly produces talented engineers, innovative ideas, and cutting-edge research. But the problem lies in the fragmented nature of Europe's market. The continent is divided into many small countries, each with its own laws, languages, and regulations, making it incredibly difficult to scale a business across borders. Imagine if Facebook had been created in Europe. In order to expand from one country to another, Meta would have had to comply with separate legal systems, privacy rules, tax laws, and business regulations, costing massive amounts of time and money. In the fast-paced world of tech, that delay would have killed its growth. In contrast, in the US, a company has access to a large unified market from day one. That's a huge advantage. This lack of a single digital market, known as market fragmentation, is one of Europe's biggest challenges. Tech startups often struggle to scale across borders. Getting approvals to operate in other EU countries can take years, and the competitive nature of tech doesn't give you that kind of time. That's why the major tech giants have emerged mostly from the US and China. Not only do they enjoy unified, large-scale home markets, but those markets are even bigger than Europe's. Despite the EU having a population of around 450 million, which is more than the US, the truth is, Europe missed the digital revolution. While the US and China capitalized on the internet, social media, and e-commerce, giving rise to giants like Google, Microsoft, Alibaba, Meta, Amazon, and TikTok, Europe remained anchored in traditional industries like automobiles, pharmaceuticals, and manufacturing. Today, out of the world's top 50 tech companies, only 4 are European. Even Europe's most successful digital company, Spotify, doesn't come anywhere close to competing with American and Chinese giants like YouTube, Facebook, or TikTok. The fact is, European companies specialize in mature industries, sectors where opportunities for breakthrough innovation are now fewer. In contrast, the modern tech industry is where the action is. And here, European companies spend far less on research and development than their American counterparts. In 2021 alone, the R&D spending gap was a staggering 270 billion euros. And here's a revealing detail. In Europe, the top 10 companies that spend the most on R&D are all in the auto industry, not tech. Compare that to the US, where the top 3 R&D spenders are all tech giants. That tells you everything about where the priorities lie. European startups also face serious challenges in raising capital. Thanks to a strong education system and a culture of innovation, Great startup ideas are born in Europe. But turning those ideas into billion-dollar commercial companies requires funding. And this is where the bridge often breaks. At the most critical early growth stage, when startups need capital the most, they struggle. Meanwhile, Silicon Valley in the US and China's own startup ecosystems act like powerful magnets. As long as your idea is strong and scalable, the money follows. Both governments have built effective venture capital systems that ensure promising startups never die just because of funding shortages. And the numbers prove this. Between 2008 and 2021, 147 European companies reached a valuation of over $1 billion, but 40 of them moved their headquarters out of the EU, and most of them relocated to the United States. There's also another key factor: Europe's strict data privacy laws. These regulations are among the toughest in the world, and while they serve an important purpose, they also make it nearly impossible for a social media company to grow quickly across multiple countries. Compliance becomes a nightmare. That's one reason why all the biggest social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, originated outside Europe. In the US, these companies face relatively fewer regulations, which gives them the freedom to scale rapidly. So while Europe continues to dominate in traditional sectors like autos, pharma, and manufacturing, it's falling behind in cutting-edge fields like AI, space exploration, and 5G. For example, if a German startup wants to expand into France or Italy, it hits a wall of new tax codes, regulations, and funding hurdles the moment it crosses the border. In the US, you don't face that. There's a single federal market. And in China, centralized decision-making makes expansion even easier. Yes, the EU has 450 million people, more than the US, but the fragmented nature of its market and the lack of legal and regulatory consistency is a major barrier to building global tech champions. While the United States was pouring its focus and resources into artificial intelligence and space exploration, European governments were busy tightening regulations and drafting strict data privacy laws. At first glance, these might seem like noble endeavors, but in the global tech race, they effectively became speed bumps. Overregulation, combined with fragmented governance and the lack of a unified policy direction, meant that European tech companies gradually fell behind. Interestingly, Europe spends nearly the same percentage of its GDP on research and development as the United States. But due to poor coordination between EU countries, overlapping priorities, and the absence of common objectives, much of this funding fails to produce the same level of innovation or commercial success that American startups routinely achieve. What's more surprising, European households actually have higher average savings than American ones, meaning there's no shortage of investable capital in Europe. But without a unified financial infrastructure, these savings often remain idle or are invested elsewhere, mainly in US-based commercial ventures, rather than fueling Europe's own startup ecosystem. Then there's the issue of brain drain. Thousands of highly skilled European engineers and professionals migrate to the US every year, and some even join Chinese firms, drawn by better opportunities, faster-growing companies, and easier access to venture capital. It's no surprise that when talented individuals dream of launching their own startups, Silicon Valley, not Berlin, Paris, or London, is where they go. A glaring example is Nokia, once the world's #1 mobile phone company. Based in Europe, it failed to adapt to technological shifts and was swiftly overtaken by American, Chinese, and Korean rivals. Energy, too, has become a major stumbling block for Europe. In recent decades, the continent increasingly relied on cheap Russian natural gas to power its industries. But after the war in Ukraine, Europe abruptly cut itself off from this energy lifeline. In parallel, carbon emission goals pushed Europe to scale back coal usage, while safety concerns led to the closure of several nuclear power plants, particularly in Germany. The result? An energy crisis. Emerging technologies, especially AI, are extremely energy-intensive. Yet European energy costs are now 2.5 to 3 times higher than in the US, a major disadvantage for any tech enterprise trying to stay competitive. So let's be clear, Europe's lag in the tech race isn't due to a lack of talent or resources. It's primarily due to missed opportunities, fragmented markets, outdated business dependencies, and the inability to embrace emerging technologies in time. But should we assume Europe is permanently out of the game? Absolutely not. Despite these setbacks, Europe still has enormous strengths. It boasts one of the most highly educated and skilled workforces in the world, along with top-tier universities producing world-class researchers, scientists, and engineers. In clean and renewable energy, Europe remains a global leader. The EU's integrated market of 450 million people is one of the most attractive in the world. And European giants like Airbus, Bayer, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz still command global respect. Europe is also home to 8 of the world's top 10 happiest nations, and its wealth distribution is about 10 percentage points more equitable than in the US, a strong foundation for long-term social and economic stability. To overcome its current tech stagnation, Europe must first address market fragmentation by harmonizing its regulations. This will allow European companies to scale across borders without being bogged down by red tape. Bridging the innovation gap with the US and China must become an urgent priority. Europe must create a startup ecosystem where companies can thrive within Europe, not flee it. Financial reforms are critical to channel European savings into European innovation. The capital is there. It just needs the right system to flow through. In 2022, Europe accounted for 17% of all global patent applications, a respectable number compared to China's 25% and America's 21%. Innovation is happening in Europe. The problem is commercialization. Unlike the US and China, Europe lacks robust innovation clusters, networks of universities, large corporations, startups, and venture capitalists working together. That's why only about 1/3 of European patents get successfully commercialized. The situation is even more alarming when it comes to venture capital. Of all VC funds raised globally, 52% go to the US, 40% to China, and only 5% to EU. Venture capital is the lifeblood of startups. Without it, promising ideas never make it past the prototype stage. To reverse this, European governments must not only encourage private investment, but also step in with aggressive public funding. Analysts estimate that to catch up in the global tech race, Europe will need to invest 750 to 800 billion euros annually, and nearly double its R&D spending as a share of GDP. So, the big question remains: can Europe close the innovation gap and go head-to-head with tech superpowers like the US and China? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain: if Europe wants to lead again, it must act fast, think big, and collaborate deeply. Thank you for watching this thought-provoking analysis. If you found it insightful, please like, comment, and share with others who might benefit. For more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.